Today we're going to build this table, sometimes called an X-brace or a sawbuck table. This one's built in cherry. The one that we found at Old Sturbridge Village was built in pine. And I'm going to show you that next, right here in the New Yankee Workshop.
The New Yankee Workshop features the craftsmanship of Norm Abram.
The next time your travels take you through central Massachusetts, you owe it to yourself to take a day and stop here at Old Sturbridge Village. It's a wonderful place. Over the last 50 years, they've collected 40 buildings from all over New England. And once you're here, you'll swear you've stepped back to 1830. That's the blacksmith shop over there. Good morning, Emerson. Good morning. And across the way, the house he lives in. That's where we're going. This house was moved here from Barre, Massachusetts in the mid-1980s. And what's amazing is that before that, it hadn't been modernized since the 1840s. Now, even though you wouldn't know it from the outside, this is a 7-room house. This being the largest room, the kitchen. And right off the kitchen is the workroom, where the table is that I want to show you. Now, it's obvious that this table is not meant to be a dining table, where you could pull chairs up to it. It's just too narrow. Now, let's see how the table is constructed. The legs are a classic X-brace or sawbuck design. The legs are half-lapped in the middle and joined by a long wooden dowel. Another feature that I really like are that these stretcher boards, which are dovetailed into the legs, provide a bin or a storage space. The top is a single pine board with no breadboard edge. Now, this is a simple table to build and very useful. Well, what do you think? Not painted pine, but cherry, because I plan on using this table as my everyday kitchen table in my cherry kitchen. Now, let me tell you a little bit about the size of this table. You really can't sit at the ends because the crossbucks will get in the way. But I sized the top to be 32 inches deep and 60 inches long. Plenty of room for 4 people to comfortably sit and have a big meal, like a New England boiled dinner. Now, if you'd like to build this table, a measure drawing is available with the materials list, and you'll hear more about that before this program ends. Now, the first thing I wanted to do today is glue up the top. So I've carefully selected 4 1x8s and ripped a piece about 4.5 inches wide for the center of the table. Now, when the boards come from the mill, they're not perfect. These two are not too bad. These are not bad, but look at this one. About a 1/16 of an inch gap down the center. That's because the board is either bowed or the edge isn't square. So the first thing I want to do is square up the edges. And the best tool to do that is my 6-inch joiner. Now, before we use any power tools, I want to take a moment to talk about shop safety. Be sure to read, understand, and follow all the safety rules that come with your power tools. Knowing how to use your power tools properly will greatly reduce the risk of personal injury. And remember this, there is no more important safety rule than to wear these safety glasses. Now, I've set my joiner up to cut 1/16 inch depth, and the fence is perpendicular to the table. Now I'll just run the edges. As always, when I set up boards for a tabletop, I've alternated the growth rings. Up, down, up, down, up, to minimize any warping of the top later. I've also laid out at about 9-inch centers pencil marks for biscuit slots. Well, I suppose in the past we would have used dowels instead of these biscuits. But boy, these biscuits work real good.
HGTV's Before and Afters on the job site with another amazing remodeling project. This week, a lakeside remodel. Even the owners had to see to believe.
When the windows finally went in and the plywood came down, it was pretty stunning.
Wait till you see this home's amazing transformation. Before and After, Sunday night at 8 on HGTV.
Our latest innovation springs from a very old idea, that heat cleans better. And so, Bissell introduces the first and only upright deep cleaner with an onboard heater. A common sense idea to make cleaning even cleaner. The new Power Steamer Pro E Plus from Bissell. Life's messy. Clean it up.
Here's HGTV's Daily Almanac. It's Thursday, March 11th. As the weather warms and new growth begins, it's a good time to fertilize wintering annuals, such as pansies. You can use a slow-release fertilizer that will feed the plants throughout the season. Or give them a quick start with a liquid fertilizer such as 20-20-20. Feed them now, and your plants will thank you with healthy blooms.
piece of 8/4 by 6 is going to get ripped into 2 strips to start forming the cross buck. Where the legs of the cross buck intersect, I want to make a half-lap joint. So I've marked out the location of the joint, and the angle of the joint will be 10 degrees to the edge. I've set up my radial arm saw with a stacked dado head cutter, turned it so it's 10 degrees from the fence, and adjusted the height so that it removes exactly half the thickness of the stock. With the half-lap mill, you can see how the 2 pieces fit together. Nice and snug and flush. Now I'm ready to cut the legs to length. So I've placed a mark for the bottom of the leg, and also up at the top I have 2 marks. I'll form a tenon later between the marks, but now I want to cut it to the longest point. To make the cuts, I've set my power miter box to a 40-degree angle, and I'll trim the end. Here I'm going to use my miter gauge, which is set at 50 degrees, to clip the corners of the leg where they meet the floor. Now I've turned the table upside down on the workbench to show you the underside. On each end there's a cleat. The cleat will support the top. I cut a mortise in each end of the cleat into which tenons from the legs will fit. Let's cut the mortises first. Here I've set up my stationary hollow chisel mortiser. I've installed a 1/2-inch chisel. Inside the chisel there's a drill bit that removes most of the material, then the chisel squares it up. Next, I want to start forming the tenons. So I've set up a stop block, which will allow me to make the first shoulder cut. And I'm going to use my miter gauge, which is set at a 40-degree angle, and this clamp down device, because whenever I'm making an angled cut like this, there's a chance it might creak. The depth of cut is 5/16 of an inch. Okay, now I'm going to have to swing the miter gauge so that it's 40 degrees on the other side of 90 so that I can make the opposite shoulder cut. Here I've installed my tenoning jig. This will allow me to clamp each leg in position with the angled cut flat against the table saw so that I can run each piece through, making the cheek cut. First, the one on this side. To cut the tenon on the other side of the leg, I've had to move the vertical part of my jig to the left. And by doing that, now the tenon is going to sit on this little ledge. And that's okay, it's perfectly safe to do that, but I've had to raise the blade to compensate for that thickness. Over here at the bandsaw, I'm going to make the end cuts for the tenon. Once again, using a miter gauge as a guide. Now here I've installed a straight block of wood to act as a fence to complete the shoulder cuts on the tenon. Now let me show you how that tenon fits into the cleat. Just slip right in, just like that. Now this layout up here is for another mortise that I need, which will receive the tenon from this stretcher. Each leg assembly is attached to the top with 3 screws. I want to pre-drill for those screws. First, a countersink. Now I'll switch to a 3/16" twist drill. Okay, now I've switched to a 3/4" Forstner bit. I want to counterbore the two end holes from the back side about 7/8 of an inch deep. This will allow some flexibility for movement of the top as it expands and contracts. Now, before I do any sanding of the pieces, I want to ease the edges. I'm starting out with a 1/2" radius bit to do the ends of the cleats. Well, now I've switched to a 1/4" radius roundover bit so I can do the edges of the cleat. If I try to hold the router on the edge, it's hard to hold it square to the edge. But if I take a couple seconds to clamp the two pieces together, I get a broader base, which gives me a more stable base. Okay, well that takes care of rounding the edges on the crossbuck legs. Now, before I do any glue up, I'm going to sand, and sand, and sand again.
There is a place where telephones can go unanswered. And it's perfectly acceptable to have tea with your high school sweetheart and Cornelius from Planet of the Apes. And you're cordially invited to visit each and every night by Serta. We make the world's best mattress.
Thanks, Dad.
You can't do this with Caravan.
Thanks.
You can't do this with Voyager.
Thanks, Bob. A little help?
The Chevy Venture is available with a remote control sliding side door. So you can get more done and have more fun.
Now choose 0% financing or $1,000 cash back on a Chevy Venture. See your dealer today.
Chevy Venture. Let's go.
Home, where the family gathers around the dinner table. Where the yard may become a ball field at a moment's notice. Where you spend hours in the sunshine planting flowers. Or in the shade resting in the hammock. Where the birds become your neighbors. And your neighbors become your friends. Your home deserves the best. Pen-coated lawn seed from Pennington. A lifetime of experience goes into every beautiful lawn.
I know what you're thinking. 10-10 this and 10-10 that. You got tens and tens coming out of your ears. You're confused. I understand that. I'm confused. Well, here's a number that can actually clear things up. 1010 ATT00. It's for directory assistance. They can help you find any number in America, even if you're a little confused.
1010 ATT00. For directory assistance, it's the only number you need to know.
Now I'm confused again. Why?
Now, another HGTV home improvement tip brought to you by Delta Faucet.
The general rule for countertop height is 36 inches from the floor. That's for the average cook. But do you know anybody who's average? For your ideal counter height, stand with your arms hanging straight down, then measure the distance from your elbow to the floor and subtract 2 or 3 inches. That's the height at which you'll be most comfortable working.
This HGTV home improvement tip is brought to you by Delta Faucet.
A vacation is also a vacation from laundry until you get home.
The way you do the things, the way you do all day.
Shouldn't doing laundry be like packing? Just stuff those clothes in there. The new Whirlpool washer can get them clean. With its exclusive rolling agitator, Whirlpool gets really big loads really clean. So you just might have a vacation from laundry. Or not. Whirlpool, a job well done.
Good morning. I thought I'd get started this morning by gluing up the leg assemblies. So I'm applying glue to both sides of the joint. And this is an important step because there are no mechanical fasteners in this table. So all these joints have to be glued and clamped properly. Okay, put these together. Now this clamp will hold the cleat tightly down onto the top of the legs. Now you've seen me do this before. Preparing boards. First I joint one edge so that it's nice and straight. This board is going to become one of the stretchers that connects the two leg assemblies. The next thing I want to do is take the board and place that jointed edge against my rip fence. And I'm going to rip it a little bit strong so I can take it back to the joiner for a final pass. The result is a board that's perfectly straight with square edges. Now I want to start forming tenons on the ends of the stretchers. The first thing I want to do is make an 1/8 inch deep shoulder cut on each face. Notice that as before, I've installed a guide block. I've reinstalled my tenoning jig and made some adjustments to make the cheek cuts for the tenon. The final cuts for the tenon are made with this little dovetailing saw. Look at the prototype and see how I constructed the shelf. Each of the stretchers has a groove along the bottom edge that supports the center board. To make that groove, I've set up the stacked dado head cutter in my table saw and tilted it to 40 degrees because the stretchers are set at an angle. With the rip fence in the right position, I'm ready to cut the groove. But once again, with a 1/4 inch radius roundover bit, I'm easing the edges.
Get clear information with complicated names on Victoria Hortulis, also known as the Victory Garden. Weekday mornings at 8 Eastern on HGTV.
There are 7 million kids in this country who wet the bed, often because their bladders haven't grown as quickly as the rest of their bodies. One product can help. That protects, yet looks and feels like real underwear. It's helping a lot of kids feel better about themselves. Good nights mean good mornings.
With over 800 tax law changes, doing your own taxes can be a nightmare.
Hey.
Hi, Bill from H&R Block.
What are you doing in my dream?
Well, it's tax time. Trying to save you some anxiety.
Thanks.
H&R Block. We know. Do you?
Forecast mostly sunny skies.
Come on, Willie, I got work to do.
Come on, buddy. Go.
It's a cat, Woody. It's a cat.
Comfort Therm insulation from John's Manville is wrapped in plastic.
The mailman. Go get the mailman.
So you don't have to worry about itching.
I know it'll get you down.
Which means it's easy to install. If you ever get to that point, Comfort Therm from John's Manville. You don't have to worry about itching. Available at home improvement centers.
They seeing you in all the old familiar places that this heart of mine embraces all day through.
Have you seen Transitions lenses lately? Indoors, the changing tint is clear. Outdoors, they're the darkest Transitions lenses ever. For all-day comfort and convenience, Transitions lenses, right in any light.
I'll be seeing you.
Visit our website or call 1-877-4-TRANSITIONS.
At ERA, we believe real estate isn't just about property. It's about people, understanding their needs, doing whatever it takes. It's helping the Perez family get a mortgage for their first home, then finding their movers, home warranty, even their home security system. Every time we help someone buy or sell a home, we help write a new chapter in their lives. ERA Real Estate. Win a Florida vacation at the ERA Clay Court Championships. Enter at any ERA office.
Use one of these daily shower cleaners and you're missing something. The confidence you get from the Lysol name. Introducing Lysol Daily Shower Cleaner. Beyond saving time, it's the clean you trust. So you have our word on it. You can't call it clean.
Well, now we're ready to apply glue to the mortises and the tenons of the stretchers and clamp the whole thing together. I know what you're thinking. You forgot to put the shelf in. But that comes a little later. At times like this, it's nice to have some nice, long clamps. Okay, that's not going to go anywhere. Now we can put the shelf in. All right, a little glue in the groove. And I'll drop in this piece of 3/8 inch thick stock. And it's just really a pressure fit and a couple clamps to hold it while the glue sets. Now, while this dries, let's go back to work on the top. The first thing that I want to do is trim the ends of the top. So I'm going to use this straight edge clamp up to a couple marks. And this will become a guide for my circular saw. Now, the belt sander does a real good job removing any saw marks from the end grain of the boards. Plus, it's great for rounding over the corners. Now, to sand the tabletop nice and smooth and even, I'm using my random orbit sander, which is attached by a hose to a vacuum, and that removes all the dust. I'm starting with a 120 grit paper. Eventually, I'll change to 150 until I get up to 220. Now, to ease the corners of the tabletop, I'm using my 1/4 inch radius bit, with just a little bit of it. Well, a little final sanding, and I'll move the piece into the paint shop. I won't actually assemble it until all the finish is on. To start finishing the table, I'm applying a coat of oil stain, just hand rubbing it in. I'm starting with the underside of the table so that I can experiment a bit, see if I need one coat or two. When I get the color just right, I'll finish staining the entire piece. Well, it turned out that I was happy with that first sample of stain I did, so I stained the rest of the table and then applied 3 coats of a tough gloss polyurethane, and that should protect it for many years to come.